Okay, so I'm live with Stephen Jagger from Addy Invest, and Stephen has recently announced a really cool new feature to Addie. But before we get into that, which is it's really attractive to I think small to mid-sized real estate investors looking to do joint venture partnerships. Before we get into this new feature, could you just give us a quick 1 to 2 minute intro of what Addy Invest is all about, Stephen? So for anyone who hasn't heard about you guys before.
Yeah, no problem. So thanks for having me. Addie is an online investment platform that enables everyone to be able to participate in ownership of institutional commercial grade real estate. So the software that we've built basically can deal in thousands of transactions, small dollar transactions, handle all the paperwork, and enable sort of regular people to be able to own that institutional commercial grade real estate, where normally it is reserved for accredited investors or high net worth investors, and your average person is either essentially locked out of it or doesn't even know that it's an option for them.
Okay, so you're giving access to anyone to invest in these larger grade institutional properties, whereas before it was only, very wealthy individuals or corporations that could put up the amount of funds necessary. So people can use your platform to invest anywhere from $1 up to how much in these properties?
Up to $2,500 into a specific property. Yeah, like normally, if you sort of think about it, prior to our existence, a real estate developer, a general partner, someone who basically buys real estate or builds buildings, generally needs to raise some money. And let's say they're buying a $30 million building, putting a $20 million mortgage on it, and they're going to go raise $10 million to buy it. Usually that general partner would put down maybe half of the funds required, or maybe 4 of the 10 million, and then they would go and raise the other $6 million. And usually what they would do is they would go and pitch accredited investors, high net worth individuals, family offices, that kind of stuff, and say, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's the building I'm building. Here's the plan. I'm raising $6 million. The minimum investment slice is $1 million. And they're doing that because they want, 6 investors at $1 million each, or 3 investors at $2 million each. So they're trying to have smaller amount of people cut much larger checks. And the reason they do that is, generally it's seen as, running a bunch of investors is a lot of work and requires a full-time person, and dealing with signatures and distributions and paperwork and all those things is why it's generally, it's sort of focused in on those high net worth investors that can cut those large checks to try and streamline it as much as possible. And so essentially what we do is we've built all the technology and the software to enable those general partners or issuers to be able to deal with, lots more investors than just a handful of high net worth accredited investors, but essentially enable that retail community, regular Canadians, to be able to participate in this and not be locked out of it because they're cutting a $500 check instead of a $1 million check.
Yeah, it's really cool concept what you guys are doing and giving access to these properties that normally you wouldn't be able to. And then the whole platform is cool, and the layout and the the operating system, like just the what is it called, the UI UX, the user experience, right?
Yep.
For the end user with the app and the website, it is really well done. But now your new feature, what can you describe your new feature? I know you just changed the name on it, so I don't know what to call it. So
yeah, it's just the Addie platform itself. And so basically what we've done is we've listed 26 properties on the platform thus far. And for those properties, generally Addie has been the issuer. So we would set up a corporation and enable the community to be able to invest through that entity, and use our software and sort of prove to everybody that it does work, that you can enable thousands of transactions, small investors, to be able to participate in that ownership. Now that we've done that and sort of proven that our software does work, we're able to enable third parties, so other issuers or other dealers, to be able to license the platform themselves and use it to run their own issuances. So there's 2 properties on the platform now where Addie is not the issuer. One of them is an issuer that's out of Vancouver, and then the other one is an issuer out of Toronto. And they have put together their opportunities, and they use our software to be able to raise the money, move the money around, sign the legal agreements, capture all the details for the due diligence in the data room, create the legal documents. So that the software itself is what does all that heavy lifting. So if you kind of back it up to the beginning of an opportunity, an issuer, or what would be called a general partner, would use the platform to basically create their entity, create the issuance. And what I mean by create the issuance is they can load all of the due diligence for their opportunity or for the building that they're buying. They can load all of that into the Addy platform. So they can keep track of all of the documents that are required around the due diligence of the building, environmental reports, like all of that kind of stuff, appraisals, assessments, all of that stuff lives digitally in the system. And then on the legal front, the software also keeps track of incorporation documentation, any of the director's consent resolutions, director's consent resolution for a raise, director's consent resolution for a distribution or a dividend, who are the directors of that entity, if there's an offering memorandum or crowdfunding documentation, if there's loan documents that need to be stored, security documents, shareholder documents, like it goes on and on and on of all of the documentation that's put together by generally by a legal lawyer or legal firm that would help that general partner kind of manage it. And the vast majority of these general partners are storing these documents either in print and file folders or on Google Docs or Dropbox or whatever it is. And so what we've done is basically created a platform to help them keep track of it, but also understand where they're in compliance or not in compliance of all these documents. Because sometimes you're missing a document or you need to get this thing collected from, whoever, and the software will show you what document is still missing, where do you need to get it from, is it, when a system shows if it's red or green meaning good, red meaning missing or not in compliance. And so the software basically pulls all of that information together to enable these general partners to have a good idea as to what's going on with their sub corporations or their sub entities. Like if you think about Addie's 26 properties, that's 26 entities with 26 annual returns to be done, 26 tax filings to be done. So there's all of these things that just need to be kept track of in a streamlined and easy way. And so that's what the software, the beginning part of the software enables people to do, is use it as a data room for all of that documentation. And then you can layer on, let's say you wanted to raise some money, you can use the platform to raise money from your normal accredited investors or your eligible investors that you would normally deal with, or potentially expose it to the Addy community to enable the Addy community to be able to participate in your offering. But the creation of the investor creating their own account, building out their own profile, filling in the suitability, doing their KYC, going through the PEP process, all of that stuff, Addy software facilitates for them, so that they can use the platform to get all of the details they need from an investor, the address, what province they're in, all the information that you need, so that when time comes to make an investment and they choose to make an investment, our software also puts out the subscription agreement, and it fills in all the subscription agreement with all the details from their investor profile that they've filled in. So it makes the whole paperwork process very simple for collecting signatures from these investors, even if it's 10 investors or 1,000 investors. And then of course, the movement of money is another big thing, where traditionally, if you've got an investor cutting you $1 million check, they're literally cutting a check or getting a draft from the bank or sending a wire, which is a manual process where you go to the bank and you wire it, and then the receiver has to get it, log in online and see, did they get it? Did the money arrive? Were fees taken from it? The Addy platform moves the money. So we can move thousands and thousands of dollars through thousands of transactions, no matter how small, as little as $1. We can manage the movement of money from the investor's bank account over to a trust account, and then eventually to the issuer's bank account, so that they get, when they choose to fund their deal, the money movement can move. All of that is built into the software, and the idea is to make it just really easy for real estate professionals, general partners, issuers, developers, syndicate owners, to be able to manage the property, manage their investors, manage investor relations, manage the movement of money, manage signatures, to make it as simple, as streamlined as possible, so that they can continue doing what they actually like to be doing, which is, running real estate, building the properties, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, this is really cool. And can this be done on any size property? Can I just do it on a single family residential home? If I want to do a joint venture, I want to raise some money and I want to put all my due diligence for this property in, or is this for larger buildings?
It depends. So if you go to the website, if you go to addyinvest.ca, you can see, in the navigation, it says for issuers. So if you click on that for issuers page, it will let you fill in some details that comes to our team here. And then we can talk through with that person. It's like, what is your plan? What are you trying to do? Are you buying a single family house by yourself? Probably not a fit at this moment for Addie's software. If you're buying, a property and you've got a handful of investors in it and you're going to rent it out, yes, potentially that would be a fit. It really depends on what they're doing, how they're planning to do it, what they're, what the plan is for raising money, what legal tools are they using to make it all happen. So the best thing to do is, if someone is interested in that, just go to a website, click on the for issuers section, and get in touch with us, and then we can speak with that person and understand what is the plan, what are you trying to do, and we can see how can the Addie software help facilitate their their purchase or the management of their investment.
Okay, so for a joint venture partnership or syndication, like you're saying, where you want to raise capital and stuff, your platform can take care of the entire process, from creating the corporation, spinning that up, to all the legal documentation, to filing and recording all that as time goes on, all the tax issuance, all the distributions to the investors through the payment rails, all the raising of capital. What about exiting the property? I'm trying to think if it covers every single stage of the life of that property, maybe exiting after you use whatever strategy.
Yep. So the exit of a property, same thing. Is, so like, how do you spin the corporation down? Once the entity is done and the asset has been sold, and now there's, you need to sort of wind down the entity. That whole process can be handled through the software. We built the software because we've been using it. So Addie itself had its first exit. One of our properties that the Addie community invested in has sold the building, and now the entity is being wound down. So yes, that whole functionality piece can be, or it's part of the software. So it makes the whole life cycle of an entity managed through the platform. The other thing I failed to mention was the T5 slips or T5013s. If you're doing a GPLP, all of that is automatically generated out of the platform. So if you have, again, this is one of those reasons why people want to have as little investors, small number of investors as possible. I want to have 5 or 10, because they're creating T5 slips manually, right? They're doing investor updates manually. They're collecting the wires manually. In our world, it's all automated. So you can move that money through thousands of transactions, in batches, and it's all done automatically for you. The investor updates, you put in your update once, it goes out to everybody through the platform. They can read it and see the update of the property. When a dividend or distribution happens, the software can pull the money from the general partner's account, put it into the Addie wallet system, and then they can choose to distribute it to their 500 or 5,000 investors, whatever it is. And the software will split that money based on everybody's ownership and move the money directly into the Addie wallets of all the investors. So all of that generally would be seen as painful process has all been automated and streamlined. And then, at the end of the year or the beginning of the next year, you have to do your T5 slips or T5013s if you've done any distributions for those properties. And again, it's the push of a button, and the system can spin up all of the T5 slips, and it notifies all of the investors within their Addie accounts. They can see, oh, there's my T5 slip. They can download it and submit it with their taxes. So it really is designed to take a lot of that weight off of the general partner or the issuer, and make it a streamlined process. So if you have 10 investors or 1,000 investors, it's the same process. There's no real difference to having vast amounts of people involved, because the software does the heavy lifting.
And can you execute multiple strategies, whether it's a value add to a building or buy and hold? Can you do different strategies with your software?
Yeah, well, so the software doesn't really, it doesn't mind what you're doing. If you're buying, a dirt patch and you're going to dig down and build a 20-story building, or if you're buying an existing, apartment complex that has 120 units, 120 renters, and it's just going to be a rental, buy and hold strategy. Those things don't matter. What matters is there going to be distributions? Are they going to be done annually or quarterly or ad hoc?
So you can customize customize your distribution amounts and frequencies. Yeah.
You're the issuer is in full control of deciding how much are they going to do for the distribution. Are they doing it on some sort of schedule? Is it quarterly? Is it annually? Or are they just going to do it ad hoc when a certain amount of money, is built up in the from that property that's been generated from that property, they can choose, okay, we're going to distribute today. And the system will do the work, notifies everybody, and actually moves the money. Then all those investors can see, oh, I got $25 back in my account for my distribution. They can choose to move it back to their Canadian bank account, or they can choose to let it sit in their Addie wallet, or they can choose to invest in whatever opportunity comes their way through the platform that they might be interested in.
And the Addy wallet is accessible on the iOS app and also the website?
Yeah, you can log in through your desktop or on your phone. If you're on an iPhone, there's also an iOS app. Android app will be coming soon.
Okay. And so when is this Addy platform that the small to mid-size, real estate investor can use, when is this going to become available?
We're live now. So we have early customers on the platform now, using the platform for what we've been talking about. So if you have people that are interested in learning more, like I said, the best thing to do would be go to addyinvest.ca, click on for issuers, and then there's a way to just get in touch with us, and then we can chat with that person, understand, okay, what are you doing? What's your plan? Is this a property that you already own and you wanted to backfill it because you're manually doing everything I just talked about, and you want to backfill the data into the software so that you can go forward, using it for those streamlined activities of creating tax slips, moving money, distributions, investor relations, all that stuff? Or is it a new thing that you're about to do, and you're buying some sort of property, a few months, and you want to set it all up in the system from the beginning? So the system can handle either. We can help backfill it into the platform for some deal that you might have done 2 years ago. We get lots of those types of inquiries where someone's bought, an apartment building with 50 units, and they bought it with, 8 investors. So the deal's been done, they own it, they're doing their quarterly dividends, but they're doing them manually. Like, they're going to the bank and wiring 8 different wires to their investors. And they're doing investor relations by creating a PDF and emailing it to 8 different people. And they're doing the T5 or the T501 all manually. And so all of that, if that's a pain point for you, which most issuers, it is a pain point, we can talk to them about just like, hey, we can just onboard you into the system, move all that stuff, put all the correct dates in, so it looks like you've been on the Addie platform since the beginning. And then the software can take over those pieces of doing investor relations, like investor updates as to what's going on, the distributions, and the tax slips. And sometimes those are the 3 big pain points. The other thing that we haven't talked about is we've built what we call the Addy sign technology. So we've got issuers or dealers, like exempt market dealers, that come our way that are, they use Dropbox or HelloSign, and they're paying a few dollars per signature. And that's another reason why they want less investors, because there's costs involved for taking signatures if you use things like DocuSign or HelloSign to run signatures. So in the Addy platform, we've got what's called Addy sign, and the Addy sign technology does all the work of serving up paperwork to let that investor sign the subscription agreement, sign whatever documents need to be signed. It automatically stores it in the software, so all of the documentation is correct and stored online under each investor's account. And it makes it super easy and very, very cost effective to do that. And so that's, again, why we're able to do thousands and thousands of transactions, is we've driven that cost of signatures down to pennies per signature.
Okay, now you mentioned that somebody can post their deal onto the Addy platform and give access to the entire Addy community, which is thousands and thousands of members, I think, in Addy, to invest in. But can you just keep it, like, send it to a private group of people? Like, let's say you've got 100 people on your email list, and you present them with this opportunity to invest in this project, and you just want to send it to them. Do they then just have to create Addy profiles, if they don't have it already, to then access this deal?
Yes. So we can do what's like a private issuance, essentially. That issuer can come on the platform, create all this, everything we've been talking about. We can work with them to create the issuance itself. And then there's lots and lots of cases where, like, a union wants to enable just the union members to own a piece of their headquarters. Or we've got another group, a real estate, like a residential real estate and residential commercial real estate brokerage that owns their own headquarters, but they bought it many, many years ago with a handful of their bigger agents that were accredited investors that had the ability to put down 250, 300 grand in the investment 10 or 15 years ago. They're now, retiring or moving on from real estate. They're 50, 60 years old now. And the real estate company doesn't want to sell the building, but they want to provide some sort of liquidity to these investors that have been in it for 10 or 15 or 20 years, whatever it was. And so there's an opportunity to use the Addie platform, enable that company to be an issuer, and enable all of their, they've got a couple thousand real estate agents, enable those couple thousand real estate agents to invest in the headquarters as a way of providing some liquidity to the old investors that would like to be cashed out. And there's a way for us to do that with the software, so we can have that issuance only available to these people. So it's only these, email addresses, or only these people from this business or this company or these employees or this union or this First Nations group or whatever, whatever it is. We can do those issuances where it's not available to the extended, Addie community. It's only for X group of whatever that group happens to be. And they can use the software to facilitate all of it in the same way. It's just, it's restricted as to who it's exposed to.
Okay, so if you're the general partner, you're essentially using this entire platform framework that you guys have built out to manage it. So you're just going on your laptop and you're managing this entire investment through your platform. And then if you're the limited partner, all you're doing is essentially signing up for Addie, signing up for this project or subscribing to it, and then transferring funds, which you've uploaded from your bank account to your Addie wallet, to then invest in this project. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Okay, so for the general partner, it seems like a no-brainer what this technology enables you to do, because it's all managing from your laptop, right? All through this platform. Is there anything that's that they would have to do that they can't do on the platform?
Well, it depends on which pieces. The vast majority of what we're talking about is all done through their Addie account, storage of the documents, creation of the serving up the documents for signature, movement of money, all of that kind of stuff is automated.
And also automated, right?
Platform.
Like they're not manually pushing buttons.
The vast majority of it. No, but some of it they do need to push a button to trigger it. So
Sure.
Like the system doesn't go ahead and do a distribution automatically. The general partner, the issuer, needs to log in and say, I'm going to do a distribution for this dollar amount on this date. And the system can serve up, you're going to do a distribution, you need to have a director's consent resolution. And it can send those director's consent resolutions to the directors in the right order for signature, get those signatures, and then store that document back into the platform, so that the legal paperwork is managed and handled and stored in the system. And then the distribution can happen where the actual movement of money happens. Right? When we all get a distribution from one of your investments from an issuer, it's not as simple as them just sending you your $500 or $50 or whatever the amount is. There's a bunch of paperwork that had to have been done in advance of that distribution or dividend to happen. And so all of that documentation can be stored in the platform. And again, the system will show you if there's a document missing. If you're like, oh, you haven't done the director's consent resolution, but you've done a distribution, but you're missing this one thing, or this one director hadn't signed something, or whatever it is, the software helps keep track of all of those things. Because again, for people that do this, or corporations that do this consistently, you can have multiple entities and they all have different, year-end dates and tax filing dates and different directors sometimes. And just like, it can get quite complex, and then keeping track of it all is a lot of work. So things don't get forgotten about, missing, and that's the idea, is the software just makes it super easy for these issuers to be able to, manage their issuance from start to finish.
Okay, and this applies Canada-wide in all provinces? It abides by all different provincial rules, regulations, legalities?
Yeah. So right now we've done, we've had properties in 4 different provinces. We've had investors. So it depends on where the investor is coming from. So if the investors, live in whichever province, the system can spit out what's called a red report, a report of exempt distribution. And so it can spit those reports out. We've automated those pieces, so those red reports can be created for BC, Alberta, Ontario, Quebec, Saskatchewan. So depending on if there was another issuer or another dealer that came into our platform, the issuer said, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I want to use the Addie platform to run my issuance, and I want to plug in this exempt market dealer, and this exempt market dealer maybe also is licensed in New Brunswick. Or Nova Scotia, or somewhere that we haven't dealt with yet. So we would just work to figure out, okay, great, we need to do what we've done in these other provinces to make Nova Scotia work. And so we can, build that functionality to enable those provinces that we have not dealt with yet to satisfy that issuer and that exempt market dealer.
Okay, and sorry, what do you mean by exempt market dealer? And then so if someone does run into this issue where you haven't done any properties in their province yet, then they can just contact your issuer team and that you can walk through the steps with them.
Yeah, it's not where the property exists, it's where the person exists.
Okay.
So if you take an investor from Alberta and they invest into your issuance, then you need to file, depending on what legal structure you're using, then you need to file a red report to the Alberta Securities Commission. But that's only happening because you have an Alberta investor, right? The property can be wherever. It's where the human is, where the taxpayer is why, which province is in charge. So if you have no Alberta investors, you do not need to file anything with the Alberta Securities. If you only did an Ontario available issuance and was only Ontario residents, then you would only have to file with the Ontario Securities Commission. So it really depends. And so depending on who the issuer is, there's a whole bunch of different legal structures you can use to facilitate this, from the offering memorandum to crowdfunding regulations. There's a handful of different ways to potentially make it happen. And then there's also what's called an exempt market dealer. And so the Addie platform can enable a dealer to be involved in the transaction if that's what the issuer is trying to do. So sometimes you might want an exempt market dealer involved in the opportunity because you're using crowdfunding regulation and you want people to come from multiple provinces or many different provinces or all of the provinces. And so you might choose an EMD that is licensed in all provinces that will help facilitate retail investors to be able to participate in that opportunity. So it can get complex depending on what the issuer is trying to do. And what we're trying to do, and I think we've done with the software, is minimize and simplify all of that complexity to make it much easier for everybody to be able to do.
Okay, and then if you're doing an issuance, you can limit it to the province, to whatever province you prefer. So if I have a building in Ontario, I can limit it to Ontario investors only.
Yep. Yeah. Just like we were talking about before, if you were doing, like if the Rockstar Group is buying a building and they only wanted the Rockstar community to be able to participate, they could do that. Or if they wanted only the Rockstar community in Ontario to participate, they could do that. Or only the people that work, only the agents or people on payroll there could participate. Like there's lots of different ways to slice it. It just depends on what the issuer is trying to do, what their goals are. And is it about, their community? Is it about a broader community? Is it about a certain province? It really depends.
Yeah, what the cause and the purpose is. Okay, and a couple last questions here for you. The bank account that the rent is going to, the income being generated from the property, is that then linked to the Addie platform, and that's where the distributions come straight out of that bank account?
It depends on the structure of the deal. Sometimes, so generally, no, the rents would go into the operating bank account that's also paying the expenses like the taxes and insurance and all that stuff would be usually in some sort of operating account. And then when they decide to do a distribution, the issuer would then move that money from the operating bank account that's running the building or running the property over to the Addie platform for distribution to investors.
Okay, through the Addie payment rails.
Yep. Yeah, it really depends. It could very well be the same bank account. It really depends. Like the issuer has the power to connect a bank account to the issuer's Addie account. So just like a retail investor has an Addie account, the issuer also has an Addie account, and they can connect a bank account to it to be able to move money back and forth from whichever entity they need to move it from. And so usually it's like if there's a distribution coming, it's coming from some bank account into the issuer's Addie account and then being pushed from the issuer's Addie account to all of the investors.
Yeah, it's so cool what you guys are doing, because first off, you guys started with your 26 properties, decentralizing real estate investing or democratizing real estate investing. But now you're like truly decentralizing it, because you're allowing small, mid-sized to other, even large real estate investors or teams or corporations or groups. You mentioned, you said like a Native American group as one of the examples, to now also crowdsource their real estate investment. So it's really, really like democratizing, but then also now decentralizing that. So it's pretty cool. Two last questions for you. So how does Addie make money from this feature? Just because people are going to want to know that. Yeah.
So there is a software licensing agreement. So depending on what you're doing, what features of the platform you want to use, the duration of the issuance, there's a bunch of different factors that would dictate pricing. And then there's, so we make money from charging the issuer and the dealer a fee to use the software, depending on what pieces of the software they would like to use.
Okay, so depending on the project and the scope of things, that's something you work hand in hand with your team to sort out. And it's essentially the cost to use the software, like a subscription type of model.
It's a licensing, it's a software licensing fee to use the platform. So sometimes there could be an issuance that's going to be, they're not going to need to do T5s. It's all going to be capital gains. So there's going to be no T5s required to be generated. So they don't need that feature of the software. Just like there's no need to have that because we're not doing those. Or maybe it's a 1-year planned issuance versus someone who's going to do a 5-year planned issuance, or they're doing an offering memorandum, which has annual filing requirements versus the crowdfunding regulation that does not. So it really depends on, what tools they want to use of the platform, and all these details. And so when someone reaches out to us, our team can basically understand, okay, what are you guys trying to do? What's the plan? How long are you thinking this issuance is? What type of a deal is it? Is it going to be doing distributions or not? And then work with them to say, okay, here's the features of the platform that you would need that makes this quite simple and easy for you. Here's what that cost looks like.
What's the response been like for this new feature from your community?
Amazing. We've got, we've got a lineup of people waiting to be onboarded into the platform. So I think there's quite the demand for it. The vast majority of groups that we talk to don't generally use either pieces of software, or they use Dropbox to keep, or like Google Files to keep their, data room working. But then they've got this other thing over here, and they'll use like MailChimp for email to do investor relations, and they're moving money either super manually or wires or whatever. So there's usually like all these different pieces of solutions that they're cobbling together to make their world work. And so what we're able to, when we start showing them like what we're up to and how this all works, it brings together a whole bunch of usually quite manual processes, or a handful of different other solutions that can be eliminated and all brought into one single platform that makes the whole running an issuance easy.
Yeah, this is cool. This also makes me feel a bit better about the world almost, because it makes me realize maybe a lot of institutional investing wasn't like some sort of classism or some social thing where people were cut off that, weren't, the uber wealthy people, but it's really because the technology didn't even enable, people to gather in a large crowd and invest the way that your platform is now allowing them to do. Yeah.
Well, I think if you think about it, like, if you're trying to raise money for anything, for a company, for a real estate project, for whatever, in general terms, it's easier to find one person that cuts the whole check that you need, and you can move forward. And then you can now you're done your fundraising activity and just get going. The more meetings and more pitches and more, presentations that you have to do, and then the more gathering of documents, and this document's missing, I need you following up on documents, and then the more wires, all of that adds costs to these companies. And that's why they generally try and avoid it, is because they just see it as it's just costs us too much money to do all of these things. Every investor coming in, there's a cost involved in dealing with that investor. That's why many times when you invest into anything, there's minimum dollar requirements. It's $10,000 minimum or $100,000 minimum. And the reason they're doing that is because it probably costs them $500 to process you as an investor, right? Just because a lawyer is going to touch something, a wire transfer is going to come in, there's fees coming off the wire, you're paying DocuSign a few bucks to do something. There's fees, all this stuff that gets, and so it doesn't make any sense to have $1,000 investor. If the same cost to take $1,000 investor, or 10,000 or 100,000, obviously you want the $100,000 investor because the costs are the same going down. And that's what we've essentially done, is automated, streamlined, and eliminated a lot of those costs. So it is possible to take investors literally through our platform for as little as $1. And it's not that we want or need people investing $1, but it's more to prove that the technology works. We can do thousands and thousands of transactions for small dollar amounts and have streamlined the process so it's cost effective to do so.
God, technology is cool, eh?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And that quote, I think it was Mark Andreessen, software is eating the world. This is just a perfect example of that, right?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah,
okay.
Totally.
So thank you, Steve, for describing this. This is a really cool feature. A ton of people I know are going to be interested in this. So where can people go one last time to find out more about Addy and also this new feature?
Yeah, so if you just go to addyinvest.ca, and then in the top right-hand corner, you'll see it says 4 issuers. Click on 4 issuers, and there's a couple different ways to get in touch with us. And that's probably the easiest way, is to sort of kick off the conversation with us. We can understand, who you are, what you're trying to do, your goals. And then we can sort of walk you through one-on-one as to, how the platform can work and how we can be successful, together if that person using the platform.
Yeah, and I think it's worth maybe even contacting you guys if you're just not sure how you could creatively use this. Like how you mentioned the real estate brokerage, how they're now providing liquidity. Like it seems like you can do all these different creative solutions and stuff. So maybe it's worth
just having the conversation, right? To things. Totally. People just need to reach out and just say, like, we had a group the other day. It's like 3 siblings inherited a building. And they were like, 2 of them want to keep the building. One doesn't. One wants to just seize the money. It's like, I would like that money. I don't want anything to do with running or owning this building that their parents had owned. And so there's potential opportunities like that of recapitalizing a building to enable one of those siblings out to keep the other 2 that want to stay in and run the property, but put in a bunch of investors to essentially cash out and recapitalize that property. So there's lots and lots of different examples of properties and opportunities and scenarios that come up. And that's why I think reaching out to us, we can learn more about what that person or what they're trying to do, and then see if there's a fit for the Addy platform.
Yeah, I personally own a property with 2 buddies of mine, and we bought it, and we're all young guys now. And, we have a long-term vision to hold on to the property and long-term buy and hold, but who knows how life is going to go. So I'm just wondering, maybe this could be a creative solution for us in the future. Let's say if one guy wants out of the deal, we want to recapitalize or just get it on this platform to automate things possibly in the future. Yeah,
totally. It could be as simple as, loading your property onto the platform and using it just to keep track of things and do your distributions to 3 people. And like, it could very well be simply that, just like you need a simple way to keep track of this. So all 3 of you can log in and just see what's going on with the property. Where we're at with the paperwork, whoever's been tasked with the annual filings, have they been done? Are they all loaded into the system? Like 100%, the system could be for that. And it's, not about fundraising and raising any new money or enabling Addy members to invest. It could just simply be keeping track of your deal with you and your 3 investors.
And it's all on an app. And I got to tell you, Stephen, as a millennial, that makes me happy. So that could definitely be a potential thing for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, let me know.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you for your time.